So we have the riots going on in the United States right now. The riots, which were as a result of the killing of the execution, frankly, of George Floyd, and we've seen a whole range of responses for this on the internet, and one of the ones I want to talk about. Well, there's many I can talk about any number of things, but I noticed something. I saw this video a few days ago, and this is a video from Markiplier. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's, you probably know, to be honest. He is a very popular kind of YouTuber, gaming YouTuber, and he made a video a day ago called "The Problem We Need to Confront." And it's about basically him saying that, talking about explaining what happened with the George Floyd case, and then giving really good analysis from a mainstream YouTuber about the causes of this. He says that, this is what happens. This is what happens when you leave people unheard for decades, for generations. It manifests into riots. It's not that, it's silly to be like, oh, we condemn, these riots. These riots are really stupid. They're counterproductive. If you want to stop the riots, you stop the material conditions that cause the rioting. You don't attack the riots. That's counterintuitive. It doesn't make any sense. All it does is just further frustrations. And in this case, the underlying conditions are, the systematic oppression and historical oppression of African Americans in the United States of America. And we're going to skim through this video a little bit. I don't know what the laws on YouTube are with the copyright and stuff. If anyone could let me know, that'd be great. So I'm just gonna skim through this video for now, so I don't get copyright striked. That'd be fantastic. But I'm gonna play a bit of it. I have to go to OBS now to change my my screen because I can't control arrow. Whoops. Show. That's the one. There we go. This is so scuffed. Okay. Here's the video. It might be really loud actually. I should probably do this. Make this small. Oh, this is dangerous. No, I'm not going to do it on that side actually. I'm going to do it on this side. I'm sorry guys, my arm is really making stuff difficult here. Okay, let's see how loud is this.
Today I'm going to be talking about a very serious subject that you probably already know about. A few days ago, a man by the name of George Floyd was murdered by a police officer while he was placed under arrest. The circumstances of his arrest are irrelevant. The man is dead. And this sort of situation disproportionately affects a certain percentage of the population. George Floyd was an African-American man. And there's a long, storied history of African-American men and women being murdered or abused while being placed under arrest.
So yeah, of course, he analyzes the problem, he explains what's happened, and then explains the main cause of it. I'm interrupting now mostly for copyright reasons. I think I'm just gonna check anything. No, okay, cool.
Resulted in numerous demonstrations, protests, and riots that have occurred across the country and centralized in Minneapolis. And I hate the term I think. The last thing I want to do is to try to inject my opinion into a situation that neither deserves it or needs it. But I think that this is a very human reaction to systemic injustice and racism that has been pervading our country for the past 50, 100, 200 years.
That's the key point. That's something that's, for a mainstream YouTuber, someone with 25 million subscribers like Markiplier, to talk about this issue in this way, not just be like, say some wishy-washy, I stand with the Black Lives Matter people and I support their cause, but actually go in here and give a detailed analysis. Well, it's not super detailed because it's 4 minutes, but he gives the correct points of analysis, is super important. This person is gonna reach probably with this one video more people than I will ever in my entire life. I should probably turn off this. There we go. Whoops. More than I probably will in my entire life. And this is a really good, a really good step of normalizing, large popular figures talking about things and using their platform in a positive way. Yeah, the approval rating for his fans is really strong. 394,000 likes to 16 dislikes. He has done other things in the past, I believe, as well. Things like he's been on, what's it called? He's been on Pride marches. and things like that. So this is the type of audience he has created. So props to Markiplier. He's doing a really good thing here. He seems very based, and making this video is really a good thing. But as always, when somebody does a good thing, we have people trying to cope with it and shoot it down, basically. And I don't know how many of you guys have heard of this person, but No Bullshit made a video on Markiplier's video, and then a Jacksepticeye tweet, but he barely even talks about that. For those of you who don't know, No Bullshit is a fascist. He's like a white supremacist. I don't know if he's a Nazi, but he's not the best individual. And he made a video basically on Markiplier's content. I know. I'm sorry, chat, but I have to cover this a little bit. And we're gonna play some of it now. Partly to torture us, and partly to to show this is one of his most popular, the introduction is so cringe. Okay, most recently watched videos. The reason why we're covering this is, of course, this guy has 658,000 subscribers. He's a very big person, and this is like the most common counter argument I feel like we're going to hear when it comes to these riots, these protests. So I thought that it would be a good idea to go over this pretty quickly. This was uploaded just 20 hours ago. I'm sorry for this cringy intro, but it has to be done.
Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about those awful events happening currently in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The last few nights now have seen lots of chaos in the streets there. Things are on fire, people are stealing stuff. It's been all out a monstrosity, really. It's really sad, it really sucks. And actually the problem is there are a lot of people defending this violence, this chaos, these people destroying stores and breaking windows and stealing stuff. And
so here's the first thing. He talks about riots, he talks about protests, he talks about violent actions and destructive actions taking place on communities. And he says that the problem is that people are defending this. The problem isn't that people are defending it. The problem is that this is happening at all. And the reason for that is systemic discrimination, systemic injustice, racism, bad practice from police departments. And for him to frame the biggest issue with this as being people defending it, I don't know what to say.
Today we're going to talk about that again. This time we're talking about specifically a couple of very popular YouTubers who are defending these bad things that are happening in Minneapolis. And also, by the way, this is happening across the country. There's been lots of very bad demonstrations gone wrong in other cities, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Memphis, you name it. A lot of big places are having chaotic gatherings of people going out and destroying public property. And that just on its face sounds really dumb, and why would that be a good thing? But there's some people that are trying to virtue signal and show that they're cool with the liberals who are causing this. And two of them that are coming to mind today, specifically one is Markiplier. He's a video game YouTuber.
Based. Okay, anyway, people who are defending these protests, from what I've seen from the people I've engaged with, they aren't saying that, hey, rioting and destroying, all these stores, all these public places, all these buildings is a good thing. What they're saying is that it is not necessarily justified, but understandable. And this is exactly what Markiplier does in his video. He's not saying, yeah, rioting is cool, we should do that more. What he's saying is that, hey, this is caused by X, Y, and Z. If you want to fix the negative thing, which is the rioting, you got to fix X, Y, and Z first. Don't attack the rioting, attack X, Y, and Z. And this is the fundamental misunderstanding we're going to get from No Bullshit in this video. Is there any way I can move this chat and get it pop out chat? Yes, perfect. Now I can see chat as well. Wait, no, I can't. Wait, can I? I can. Okay, epic. All right, sorry. I'm trying to get this to work.
YouTuber, as is our second example, Jacksepticeye. Both of these guys have massive YouTube channels, giant followings, and they're really sending out bad messages to everyone, saying that this violence and chaos is okay, basically. They're defending it. They're trying to justify it by claiming it's because of racism or because of a certain bad case when a cop arrested a person and they died. They're blaming it on all kinds of stuff. And the problem is this is chaos, and we shouldn't be kind of supporting this kind of breaking of the law. But these YouTube,
if no bullshit, like just accidentally said like the opposite of what he's saying, he would be one of the most based people ever. That makes no sense at all. But I hope you guys see what I mean there.
YouTubers are. We're going to talk about it more soon. We're going to go over their video and a tweet that shows that they're really kind of playing defense for these criminals out in the streets causing chaos. We're going to get to all that soon, but first, let's just take a quick moment to check out our sponsor.
Nope.
Guys,
not on my channel. I'm sorry. Where does it end? Okay.
You use the link below this video.
No.
That's going to be guy. This is the video Markiplier put out a couple days ago. First things first, though, I want to say I don't really have anything against these YouTubers, Markiplier here, Jacksepticeye later. I mean, I don't really know much about them. I know they're big channels. I haven't watched their videos. I do know a little bit just from being on YouTube for a long time. First of all, they're gaming YouTubers. That's pretty obvious. They just kind of watch video games and do funny voices. That's essentially the content you can expect for them. So right out the gate, before we even get to their cringy posts, it's not really in their character, in their kind of fit for their brand to comment on these social issues, especially very, very serious, violent ones where people are losing their houses, their lives. Like, this is a big, serious issue for sure. And I think people need to be super careful and calm and understand they might not know exactly what's going on. Specifically, these guys are million.
Okay, so from what we have there, okay, people using their platforms to stand for what they believe in is completely understandable, and it's completely fine. It's their private platform, you know, they can do whatever they want. No bullshit. As a capitalist should understand this, if anybody. But also, you know, maybe no bullshit doesn't realize this, but us personally, when we see this, we can see clearly that this video that Markiplier put up is not just him like giving his thoughts like, oh yeah, the police killing was bad or whatever, so the protest is fine. This is him giving clear, you know, points of analysis as to why this happened, and you know, the causes of it, and that we should attack that. So no bullshit probably doesn't recognize this, but this is not just some YouTuber with a big platform being like, yeah, that was bad, I guess. This is, you know, really based stuff.
Millionaires who live in like ivory towers don't really know how the real world works. They've been given millions of dollars by YouTube to play video games. I mean, do you really think they're equipped to be introspective about this kind of issue? I don't think so. And I'm not trying to claim any kind of superiority, but at least here we talk about this stuff all the time already. That's why you guys came to this show. That's why we're in this community. We're talking about these issues already. So whenever a gamer like these guys does a different topic, it's kind of strange, and it's also a kind of political move because they're kind of influencing these 25 or so million people. They each have 25 million subscribers. And they're influencing them. They're young kids, and they're telling them that these riots are okay, and that's really messed up. Like, that's the hardest part here to take.
Okay, so this is a reoccurring thing. No, they're not saying the protests are okay. They're saying this is what caused them. If you want to stop the protests, you stop doing it that way. And this whole, you know, oh, it's really weird that he's doing this. Is not political YouTube or whatever. No, I mean, the important thing is to engage with the subject matter. If somebody, you know, with millions of subscribers were to put up a political video, then an effective argument against that political video is not, you don't usually do this. An effective argument is, hey, this is wrong, this is incorrect based on X, Y, and Z. Saying that they don't usually do this is not an argument against the content of the video. And him saying that this is a political move by influencing his subs as a counter argument seems super bizarre, because that's what YouTube is, that's what political content all over is, that's what I'm doing right now, that's what he's doing right now. His counter arguments, or his arguments at least right off the bat, seem really weak.
Be talking about a very serious subject that you probably already know about. A few days ago, a man by the name of George Floyd was murdered by a police officer while he was placed under arrest. The circumstances of his arrest are irrelevant. The man is dead. And
okay, I want to go ahead and pause right there. No one is defending this death. Everyone says it's a bad thing, including myself repeatedly. We're all behind that. We think the cop that killed this guy should be punished. But the idea that the circumstances don't matter, I don't know if that's really true. I mean, do we know what the guy getting arrested did? Like, he could have just went and killed a bunch of people. He could have set fire on, you know.
Okay. We do know what this person did. This person was arrested for forgery, from what we know right now, the information we have right now. Second of all, no, the circumstances don't really matter, because from the footage we have, we can see that this person is being arrested. He's being taken there by, 4 different people. He doesn't appear to be fighting back during the arrest. We have video footage of this. This footage was definitely there 20 years ago. Oh my God, he even premiered it. He has no excuse for making these claims. It's just, I don't know what he's trying to do here.
Of group of babies in a hospital, like, we don't know. So their circumstances definitely matter. I mean, the first thing I would say is I'm not sure what the arrest was for.
Sorry, I was going to say, there's no circumstance where there is not a, resisting arrest where a police officer should execute, the criminal. Even if they have been shooting at people, they have been violent. Once they are arrested, once you have 4 police there, then there is no excuse if that person gets executed. Then the circumstances don't matter. They should if they were really worried about him escaping, put him on handcuffs and put him inside the police cruiser that's right next to there. Police cruisers are made to put criminals in the back, That's why they're there. That's the purpose of the back seat of a police cruiser.
He was likely getting arrested for a reason. I don't know if they just got to pull him over for nothing. Like, I don't even know the details. That's the thing. And that's the problem with this story. Like, we don't know a lot of what happened. All we know is this guy arrested a guy, and he did it too violently, and he ended up dying. That's definitely bad, and that's enough to really kind of get the story going. But the fact that they assume, like, oh, it doesn't matter what he did, and then on top of that, what you're going to see is they're going to assume racism, which is what everyone's been doing, and we still have no proof of that. No one knows if anything was racist here at all. I mean, I haven't heard anything. I don't see any evidence. I don't see any proof, video, quotes, whatever it may be, a report, a witness, something. Like, something has to prove it was racist. But these guys, the problem here is these guys think it's just proven racist because the cop is white and the victim was black. Like, that's racism to them. But that's really not how it is, because, I mean... Okay,
I'm going to educate in your bullshit here, okay? So, basically, for no bullshit to see something as racist, he needs to see the person, yell the N-word at the criminal while they're murdering him. That's what it needs for this to be like a racist action for no bullshit. The reason why people are protesting is not only because of the murder of George Floyd. It is because of a systemic, perpetual, historical, constant discrimination and unjust violence being conducted towards African Americans disproportionately in the United States by police. And these things have been shown again and again in studies that the way that African Americans are treated by police, even when accounting for crime rate, this is something that, no bullshit, and this is like their main counter argument, that they're blowing all sociological information out of the water by saying, well, they do more crime. Even when accounting for that, they are, stopped more often. There's violence, conducted towards them during arrests more often. There's more police in those areas. The areas are over-policed. This is what people are protesting more than the George Floyd murder necessarily. It's the whole system. It's a system of racism. It's not just, this one murder.
If you flipped it, if the cop was black and the guy was white, would that be racist? I don't think they would say that. And I don't think any other color combination would assume racism and make it automatic. So with that said...
It's not the fact that the cop was white. It's the fact that this is a constant, studied, well-documented phenomenon. We don't have a massive phenomenon of black cops murdering white criminals or white people in general. Not everyone that the police murders are criminals even.
I think you're going to see how this whole premise and this whole video is just bunk right from Jump Street.
This sort of situation disproportionately affects a certain percentage of the population. George Floyd was an African-American man, and there's a long, storied history of African-American men and women being murdered or abused while being placed under arrest.
Whoa, that is a bold claim, sir. I'm not sure you have any proof of that. I don't think that's something that's true in recent history, at least. Like, maybe in some other country or 100 years ago, there was cops out there murdering people. But I highly doubt that's been happening, because this actual case proves it's not true. Because, of course, this was the guy died. But we got to admit one thing. The thing you got to recognize.
This case proves it, but the guy died. What? Okay. For those of you, I don't know, no proof. I don't know if I even need to say anything about it. One simple Google search will get you the answers. Something that I have off the top of my head is, for example, white people and black people use marijuana at similar rates in the United States, yet black people are 4 times more likely to be convicted of it. We have seen, arrested for it. We see over-policing of the communities. We see more violence per capita, of course. Per capita, people like saying, oh, well, police kill more white people, as an aggregate. But you need to look at per capita, obviously, because there are more white people than black people in the United States. Per capita, they experience more violence, more arrests, harsher sentences. These are things I just have at the top of my head. And for him to say that, well, there's no proof of that, I don't know if he is aware of that and is just ignoring it, if he's just not well read enough, which... for a person with 658,000 subscribers, seems super irresponsible. But, I mean, it's no bullshit. What do you think? I don't know what to say. This is... and then the whole performative, whoa, that's a pretty bold claim. I don't know what to say. This is...
This seems to be an accident. I'm not saying the guy did the right thing. He shouldn't have arrested him in the wrong way, in this violent way. But it wasn't an intentional... murdering kill. I mean, I think he's going to get tried for 3rd-degree murder, which is still a killing. It's still really bad. But it's not like he just went and wanted to kill him. Like, he could have done that in many other ways. He could have, just broke his neck, stabbed him, shot him. Like, there's 100 ways he could have just straight up tried to kill him. So the way that it happened, I think, was he got killed incidentally. Like, he was trying to hurt him, but then the kill came later, and that's why sometimes it's called manslaughter, but he's still getting charged for murder.
Okay. So for no bullshit to recognize that there was a purposeful killing of an African American by the police, what he needs is, number 1, the police has to be yelling the N-word while it happens. Number 2, they have to be using weapons or break their necks for it to be considered a purposeful murder. I don't know what to say.
Murder. Regardless, you can't say cops have a history
of...
Yeah,
exactly. It's not just, oh, well, whoops, he happened to die. We were using standard arrest procedure. There is no way. There were people constantly, he was saying, I can't breathe. You're on my neck. Please get off. I'm not sure if those were the exact quotes, but, I really should have the exact quotes. But he was saying that he was getting warning from, the suspect. People on the back were saying, people who were recording were saying, he can't breathe. You have to get off. You're hurting him. You're killing him. And he went unresponsive. Usually it takes 5 minutes, I believe, if I remember correctly, for someone to, when they're being choked or having their, their artery being blocked, for them to fall unconscious. The guy had his knee on him for 9 minutes. There was a very large period of time where the man was unconscious. This isn't just an accident. This doesn't just happen. And the police officers in question as well had seen multiple charges before of unjust violence and complaints being filed against them. I think it was 18 for the guy that killed him. This is insane. This is not just, whoops, an accident happened while doing standard arrest procedure. He had every opportunity to stop this murder. The blame is fully on him.
Of murdering African Americans. I mean, if that happened, we would see it on the news every day. Like, this incident is on the news. Everyone's talking about it. When was the last time this happened? I know there's been a lot of other cases the left tries to race bait, but most of those turn out to be a bad example. It turns out to be the victim was actually starting the violence or starting the problem. And that's why with this case, they finally had a proper example of abuse. And that's why it went so crazy, because they had already been race baiting the public for years. And unfortunately, this guy, Markiplier, he seems to be successful. He does really well online, but it doesn't make him smart and knowledgeable about these kinds of intricate, nuanced police social issues.
I can tell you, no bullshit, Markiplier is smarter and more educated on this than you will ever be in your entire life. This weird attack on, Markiplier for doing non-typical content, when the statements he makes, the arguments he makes, are factually incorrect and logically unreasonable. Like him saying that, oh, well, we don't know if, a crime was done because of a murder was done because of racism unless X, Y, and Z is fulfilled, and those requirements are, completely unreasonable. Oh, there is no history of African Americans being oppressed by the police in the United States, about being there's no evidence. That's a pretty bold claim. Like, I don't know what to say.
This has resulted in numerous demonstrations, protests, and riots that have occurred across the country and centralized in Minneapolis. And I think I hate the term I think. The last thing I want to do is to try to inject my opinion into a situation that neither deserves it or needs it.
But, he says he doesn't want to inject his opinion, but he's going to do it. And he's very happy to kind of capitalize on this situation and make a political video out of nowhere in light of this controversy. And the one thing I wanted to note...
In case you don't know, no bullshit, for someone that makes gaming content, especially gaming content where, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of gamers are really reactionary, for them to make a explicitly progressive political video, if there's anything you can do to capitalize and make money, it's not by doing that. That's the opposite you want to do if you want to make money, if you want to be effective. Additionally, I think I even heard that the video is demonetized. He's not going to make any money off it. And additionally, he, at the end of this video, he said that he's donate an amount of money. He doesn't specify what to police violence. I think it was police brutality organization that tries to tackle it. This is super strange.
Here, before we get to his thoughts, is he actually kind of tries to play this off like, oh, he doesn't monetize the video. He's trying to act like this is like a public service announcement. He's not making money off of it. I highly doubt that, okay? I'm pretty sure in a lot of ways, like even if it's on the fringes, he's making money off of this video. It has millions of views. It's having many likes and comments. It's giving his website and his YouTube page new subscribers. They're getting recommended other videos. There's profit coming from this. So for him to say, oh, it's not monetized and this is just like him, some kind of public service announcement, it's disingenuous. He's capitalizing and putting his opinion on something that he knows very little about. I mean, the guy just said cops are out there killing black people willy-nilly. I mean, that's just not happening. This case proves that it's not happening a lot, because otherwise we would have these riots all the time.
But I think that this is a very...
Number one, we know that if there was a YouTuber of this magnitude who were to put out a video supporting like a right-wing view on this, a regressive view on this, a reactionary view on this, no bullshit will be, screaming based about it. So this is not an opinion he would hold, consistently. Number two, just because somebody uses YouTube, which is a platform where you can get revenue, you can get money, you can get capital from it, does that mean that you are never allowed to make a political statement if you're one of these content creators, just because you would make money off it? So is he saying that, if you're a YouTuber, then you should not do anything except for what you're, designed to do? We are telling you, the private person, the content creator, the owner of your I guess, is it a business? I don't know what it is. That what you have to do, you're not allowed to do this because it's not approved by me.
Human reaction to systemic injustice and racism that has been pervading our country for the past 50, 100, 200 years.
So now he's kind of time traveling. He's bringing up systemic racism, basically a made-up term, doesn't really mean anything. It's this kind of claim that everything in the government is racist from the top down, like the whole system is racist. It's not. I mean, there's no laws against certain races. There's no,
Okay. Systemic discrimination. This is something that I ran into with my first debate, the one with the American traditionalist. What systemic discrimination means is discrimination or racism or whatever that is being perpetuated through systems. These systems can be criminal justice system, employment systems, housing systems. These are all types of systems, type of institutions. That's the same thing, racist institutions. These are all types of institutions and systems that are perpetuating racism. In housing, we see it in lead-in walls. In employment, we see it in you have a less likelihood of being employed based on your name if it's stereotypically black. In criminal justice system, we see it in stronger sentences, over policing, more violent arrests, and more arrests in general and over policing of the areas. And education system, education is a system. We see that communities that are predominantly African American consistently get placed in areas with have schools that are the shittiest in the United States, for example. This is what people mean when they say systemic discrimination. Now, note that in none of these systems, there is a law saying the employment system says that we shouldn't employ black people as much, or housing systems are saying that you shouldn't give good houses to black people, or, criminal justice system says that you should give harsher sentences to black people. They aren't laws, but we still see empirically that there's racism being perpetuated by it. There doesn't have to say in the law. Again, this is the same thing as the crime for no bullshit. No bullshit says it's not, we don't know if it's a racist crime unless the guy does these super like obvious things that would never happen in real life. Same thing with the discrimination. He says, well, there's no actual systemic discrimination unless it literally says in the letter of the law, no black people, make it worse for black people.
Race can't do this race can't do that, this person can't hold office. Like, there's none of that. It's just a BS term that leftists use to try to say everything's racist, and it makes it sound smarter. And then in addition to that, the reason he wants to say 50 years, 100 years, 200 years ago, that's the best way for liberals to get back to actual racism. Like I said, this is what's really important is we're talking about the last 10, 20, 30 years. Those are what's relevant. I'm not...
Okay, the reason why Markiplier talks about the system, like history is number one, well, I would say this is probably the main reason, is that historic discrimination throughout time manifests itself in material ways today. So, for example, there have been, I think there are people alive today that lived under Jim Crow. So, if you live under Jim Crow and you're heavily, legally, according to Mr. Bullshit, it actually says in the law that you can't do X thing if you're black, being discriminated against in that way, what's going to happen? Well, you're probably going to be poor. You're probably going to have a shittier job. You're probably going to, end up doing more crime. And if this happens, then if you have kids? Well, chances are a massive predictor of a child's success in life is their parents' socioeconomic conditions. If their parents are in a fucked up situation because of legal discrimination, what's going to happen to them? Well, they're going to grow up in a bad household, and therefore they're going to be more predisposed to having poor socioeconomic, conditions. And this is the cycle. This is the historical cycle of discrimination. This is the generational wealth thing. How just because there is no discrimination alive today, even if there is no discrimination at all in the United States, no systemic discrimination, that would still not be enough. Because if a people are being subjugated and discriminated against for hundreds of years, that will still manifest it in today in terms of household and generational wealth among those people. So for you to solve that, you have to ensure that you make up for the issues that you had. So you have to, for example, funnel particular, amounts of money into communities and into education facilities, medical facilities, employment areas where these African American communities are. And that's the way to solve it. You can't just, even if we did have no discrimination today, that wouldn't solve the issue. That's why the history matters. That's why Markiplier is saying 50, 100, 200 years.
Trying to hide that. Like, no one's denying there was racism in the past. And I'm not trying to cover that up either. But these guys are overhyping it. And they try to, harp back to something like, say, slavery or some bad racist group from 100 years ago. And they're trying to connect that to now when they're not really related at all. In the reality, in the present, what matters is the last 20, 40 years, racism has basically gone off. It's not really there anymore, except for one little exception. And this is what they're not going to like. Really, what's popping up now is anti-white racism. This is actually a form of that because in a lot of ways, what Markiplier is saying is that white people are racist.
I don't know.
He's saying America's racist. He's saying our country's racist. So that's just a way to demean the majority. They're going after good, innocent Americans. We didn't do anything wrong.
This is super interesting. Did you guys notice this? How he said that anti-white sentiment is being, encouraged, and we're being racist against whites because we are fighting racism. So what he's then saying by extension is that if we fight racism, if we push back against racism, we're actually pushing back against white people. So what he's thereby admitting is, hey, there are advantages that white people have today in the United States that are caused by racism. Because if that wasn't the case, if we were living in an equal utopia, then how would pushing back against racism be, reduce the relative, advantages of a white person? It wouldn't. It doesn't make any sense. He's contradicting his own argument.
They're just saying we're all racist because they're trying to have some messed up way to defend what they think are minorities, what they think are these innocent people. They're trying to protect them and pander to them. And that's what Markiplier is doing too. He's pandering.
This is a problem that is deeply rooted in our government and in our communities and in these systems that are supposed to help our fellow man. And it is a problem that needs to be rooted out at every turn. And it's always been a big point of mine to try to use my platform responsibly.
Right. Yeah. He's getting a little high and mighty. You could tell he's very self-important. He's talking like in this dramatic way.
More flawless arguments
America
by no bullshit.
has systemic racism, and 200 years.
This is just his voice, my guy. I'm sorry if you're jealous.
Haven't helped the people they should. I mean, he's acting like he's writing some kind of dramatic documentary that's trying to, sway people into hating whites. Essentially,
Hating
what
whites.
this is
Oh
going
my
after.
God.
And they're in a way they're trying to think they're
True
virtuous. This is
projection.
a virtue signal as well, like trying to say, "Hey, look at me. I love black people like you." Everyone.
You know what is a virtue signal? And I've seen this. Virtue signaling is just saying like, just empty, just being like, hey, Black Lives Matter, good law, and just doing that. That's virtue signaling, because what you're progressing your support, you're proclaiming your support and everything, but you're not really doing anything. You're not giving people new knowledge. You're not having a material impact on the world. You're just saying, hey, this is cool. That's more what virtue signaling is. What Markiplier is doing here is not virtue signaling. He's using his massive platform to have an effect on millions of people. He's not just saying, hey, I support Black Lives Matter law. He's giving clear, he's pointed to clear issues and clear staples of society that are racist and are causing these issues. And thereby he's saying, hey, these issues come from these things, so we should tackle these things. He's directing people, he's he's showing people, hey, this is where the problems are, this is what we have to attack, this is what we have to do. This is not, basis, this is not virtue signaling, this is very direct and very explicative of what we have to do.
Everyone should like me. I'm a liberal. I'm with the majority. I'm with the whole, mainstream media, social media. Like, I'm going along with that. They're towing the line, and it's really not brave if you think about it. I mean, you're just going along with the.
I'm just gonna say this for a person like Markiplier with 25 million subscribers who does gaming content, a field that is dominated by right-wing people. This is, more brave than I think no bullshit is giving it credit for.
Mainstream, you're going the safe route. This is what everyone wants you to say.
Then
this
he wouldn't have said anything
the
if it was a
websites
safe
want you
route.
to say, what the
Like
news
PewDiePie did, he
agencies,
didn't say anything. I don't
what
think.
the liberals,
I haven't checked his
like
Twitter.
the Hollywood people. He's just going along with that to a T perfectly, and that's why it's just so hard to watch, and it's so cringy because they're totally missing the point of all this issue. And in a way, like I said in the beginning in the title of this video, they're defending these riots. They're defending criminals. They're defending people that committed crimes, broke stuff, stole stuff, burnt things, just kind of destroyed their city, destroyed Minneapolis. Other cities are getting destroyed, property, police cars are getting knocked out.
Note that Markiplier has still not in any way said any sort of statement in support of rioting as an action. All he's saying is that what's happening right now, he's explaining more than he's supporting. He's saying that this is happening because of X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z are perfectly reasonable reasons to do these actions. He's not saying that these actions are justified. He's saying that the reasoning behind them are justified, and that it's pointless, it's counterproductive to attack the action that results from these, reasons, rather than attacking the reasons. That's where we need to focus our efforts. That's what we need to do. But no bullshit, of course. He needs the clickbait here, defending looting criminals. What he's more interested in is, trying to prescribe a position to this person that Markiplier isn't really holding.
For no reason. I mean, there's no proof to this actually being racism. Back to the original case. We don't have any proof of racism. We don't have any proof that cops are out there murdering black people randomly.
No bullshit. If you're for some reason watching this, which you never will ever, if you want to ever have a conversation with me, we can go talk. We can have a nice, good faith discussion, okay? And I can provide you the research you're looking for. I can enlighten you, okay? I can educate you. Educating is a good thing, right? If you come on, we'll have a conversation, and I'll explain for you why people are angry. Just good faith, just explaining. Just letting you know what's going on.
And that's just why it's just so insane to see someone who is that successful. He has millions of subscribers. He's a super rich millionaire, but he could be so wrong about something. That's kind of interesting.
He has still made no factually correct statements. No bullshit.
People in the direction that I feel is right. In this case, there is very little gray area to debate about. A man is dead as a result of police brutality, and there was no justice in his death. And this...
Actually, the cop is arrested and being tried for murder. I mean, that's justice. That's
okay. Again, he's not protesting. Like, these protests aren't happening just because of this murder. There's the systemic issue, which is the main thing that is, encouraging. Again, it's a thing where don't talk about the problem, don't talk about the symptom, fix the causes. The murdering of George Floyd, well, of course you should talk about, the symptoms, but the murdering of George Floyd is a system. But what you need to talk about, what Markiplier is explaining here, is not saying that, hey, this is all justified because of the symptom, because of the killings of the murder of George Floyd. It's because of the causes, because of the police, it's because of the systemic discrimination in the criminal justice system that led to this being able to happen.
That's how justice works. Going out and destroying buildings isn't justice.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say this as well. The reason why people say this has been injustice is, as well, they were way too late in arresting, the murderers that did this. Like, super late. They got fired immediately, which, great job. Maybe a little bit more than that. And then it took way too long for them to press charges. And I think, as of recording this video right now, 31st of May, 8:12 p.m. CET, I don't think there's been any charges levied against the other, the people that were complicit in the murders. The only people that have been accused is, the person in the video had his knee on Floyd's neck. So it came super late, and all of the murderers aren't even facing charges. That's another thing when people say that there hasn't been justice for this.
Person dying doesn't mean the whole country gets to go rob Target. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I don't know what he's talking about or thinking. Like, I don't get this at all. And it goes along.
Someone in the chat is saying that he's set for bail as well, so that's another good meme. I just felt like bringing that up so that we're aware.
This is prevalent. This is a big time thought that a lot of dumb liberals are going around saying they don't get what's going on. They think everything's racist, and they think that this violence is okay. They're basically inflaming the violence and saying, riot, riot, let's get Antifa out there. Let's attack people that we say are racist. Let's go after the cops. But one cop having a bad arrest that was terrible doesn't mean all the cops are racist.
Yeah, I guess that's when we can put
all the cops across the country are bad. Police aren't the enemy. They're trying to help us, believe it or not. They're actually saving us. They arrest people that do bad things. They put criminals in jail. They take murderers off the streets. Like, they're the helpers. And sure, there's bad eggs in there. We just have so many of them. We have so many people. There's 300 million people in this country. It's going to take a lot of cops to keep all of our cities and towns and areas under control. So
okay. When people say ACAB, all cops are bad, they're not saying that every single individual police is a morally bad person. They're saying that the institution of policing, this is more specific to the United States, but I'm sure it applies to many other countries as well, is one that persists and constantly engages in actions of racism and actions that are morally reprehensible. This is what people are saying. They're not saying all police are bad. They're saying that the system itself has negative outcomes and has negative consequences and does things that are negative to society. Saying that, these people protect us, they do some good things. Like, I love the amount of credence that people grant bad eggs in policing compared to any other field. Like, if a police murders somebody, that should never happen. A police should never murder somebody in custody. Well, unless they're, having a shootout. But they should never murder someone in custody. They should never murder an innocent person. That shouldn't happen. Like, imagine if you were working in an airplane, an airplane company, and you were about to board a plane, and somebody just said, yeah, we should define most of our cops are good, but some bad eggs just don't like to land. What? No, that's unacceptable. People who engage in being a police, they should be held to a higher standard than anybody else. And than most other jobs, at least, in society. It's not, saying it's some few bad eggs isn't a valid excuse.
It's there's going to be a couple bad eggs. There's going to be a couple bad eggs in every job, every kind of career path, politicians, important stuff, firefighters. Anything, you could go to a YouTuber or a doctor. Doctors can make mistakes on a surgery. I mean, it just happens, and it's just so messed up to not have any perspective on this. They just want it to be racism. That's the problem, is they already hate white people and cops. So they see something like this happen and they're like, it's racism, let's go after them, let's destroy everything. And it just doesn't make sense. And the other thing I want to address before moving on is the way he said there's no gray area is kind of reductive. You know, it's kind of like, oh, we can't even discuss this, guys. If you don't agree with me 100%, you're a racist too or something. I mean, I'm not sure how far he wants to go with that, but to say there's no gray area is very bold. I mean, we're already talking about a lot of gray area stuff. We're talking about a lot of, you know, things that he doesn't even mention. That actually reminds me, before we wrap this up,
we're talking a lot about things he doesn't even mention. Yep, that sums up, you know, this reaction pretty well. What he says when there's no gray area is that he says that at this point in time, if you are not educated on the prejudice and the discrimination that African Americans face in the United States, you're either, you know, doing it on purpose because you're being, what's the word I'm looking for? You're either doing it maliciously on purpose or you're uneducated. At this point in time, there's enough evidence, there's enough data, there are enough studies that concludes that racism exists in the United States of America. There is no debate about that anymore. If you disagree with this, then you are wrong, you're factually incorrect. That's what he's saying when he says there's no gray area. He's not saying that anybody who doesn't agree with him is going to like the gulag or whatever.
To look at some stats, because he acts like these cops are just arresting black people for no reason. And we could see right here that 4.7% of black people are incarcerated compared to 1.8 and 0.7 Hispanic and white. I mean, they are in jail and getting arrested and committing crimes more than anyone else. It's not because the cops are racist against.
First of all, just because the incarceration rate is not the same as the crime rate. But the crime rate isn't a perfect metric either. First of all, incarceration rate isn't a good measure because, first of all, this is 2009, by the way. Incarceration rate isn't a good measure because, number one, it might be higher. That's why he's using the 2009 one probably. Or maybe he's just like academically illiterate and just doesn't read the graphs. I don't know. What was I saying? The reason why incarceration rates aren't good is because it doesn't take into account over-policing. It doesn't take into account police targeting African Americans more. It doesn't take any of those things into account. And if he's treating this as this is how many of these people are committing crimes, that's not an accurate metric. So while there are, yes, more African Americans committing crimes than the native white population or the Hispanic population, while that's true, this graph doesn't represent that. And I'm just pointing that out. But the reason why they do that is because of socioeconomics, obviously. But this guy, he says about, at one point, I believe he had a conversation with Destiny, and he said that police are arresting people because black people drive around in the cars and, wave guns out of their windows. So he's a really bright lad. Secondly, why crime rate isn't a good metric either, because what happens when you have disproportionate policing is that, say you have two communities, both with 100 people, and one of them you have white people, one of them you have black people. And say you have police in both of these communities, and say that the crime rate is equal. You have 10, you have 5 crimes per 100 people. So you have a crime rate of 5%. And then for some reason, you decide to, hey, let's double the amount of police in the black community. What's going to happen then to the crime rate in the black community? Well, it's going to go up. And the reason why it goes up is because you have more police, you have more people catching crimes. And this is what happens, is you over-police one area a little bit, crime rate goes up. Oh no, we need to put even more police. You put more police, crime rate goes up, more police, more militarized police, give them tanks, give them automatic weapons, give them, ridiculous, weapons that should only be used for military purposes. The crime rate's still going up. And this is a super important misunderstanding. Just because you have more police doesn't mean that the crime rate is going to fall. And if you look at different communities, you have to look at how heavily they are policed if you are to compare their crime rates. So the only way to get an accurate depiction of crime rate, which assuming that the police don't target African Americans, which they do, you would have to have an equal amount of policing across the entirety of America. And then crime rates can be compared, just on a basic level. But otherwise, that's not a good idea. That's not how data analysis should work in this field.
Them, it's because they're committing more crime. It sucks, and I don't want to see that. I wish that they could do better, but the problem is they're stealing stuff more. We've seen them do it. We've seen them throw these riots, rob Target, break down buildings, burn stuff, and it's because they're just not following the law. They're not following the rules. They're obviously not being raised properly. Some people could blame this on poor parenting. I think that has a lot to do with it. Fathers not sticking around. This community.
Percent of U.S. males, adult males incarcerated by race, 4.7% black. I wonder why the fathers aren't staying around in the communities. Sure is a mystery. Whoops, I wonder why. I guess we'll never know.
He also is known to have the worst amount of single mothers, and that's just the real issue here, and they're just ignoring all that, and they're blaming the cops. They're like, cops are racist. That's why black people are getting arrested more. That's why they're interacting with the cops more, because that's another thing too. The whole reason that these bad interactions do happen is because they're interacting with cops more, because they're doing bad things. And the other thing on top of that is the fact that we all know that this group will not allow themselves to be arrested. They don't listen to the cops. They don't like authority. They don't follow the rules. So if
that's a pretty bold claim.
You're not going to go along with things when you're getting arrested, like say, reaching for something, acting a fool, trying to fight the cop. I mean, obviously you're going to get yourself into more trouble, but none of this is mentioned. None of this comes up because these YouTubers just don't know what they're talking about. Lastly, we have this tweet from Jacksepticeye, and he has a basic kind of similar thing to say. He's a similar YouTuber. It says a riot is the language of the unheard.
True.
Martin Luther King Jr. These people are not opportunistic or thugs. They're tired of your shitty system and normalized racism. How are we still debating stuff in 2020? Black Lives Matter.
Jacksepticeye based. I don't know as much about him as Markiplier, but
so this is a guy. He's from another country. He's from, I believe, Ireland or Britain or something. And he has no clue what's going on. But obviously, he's a radical leftist, like a lot of the people on the British Isles. They're just
the people on the British Isles. I don't know. I don't know where to start. First of all, just based on where someone comes from or where they live does have nothing to do with what kind of literature they engage with, what they read. Like, look at you, for example. You live in the United States of America, but you have no idea what's going on inside your country. You have no idea. Where someone lives is irrelevant to how much information they have regarding the thing. And then him calling him a radical leftist, or saying that a lot of people in the British Isles are radical leftists is quite the take.
They don't know what's going on. They think everything's racist, and they're trying to cast ideas onto America like, oh, we're all racist. No, these people are criminals. They're opportunistic thugs because they're stealing stuff. It has nothing to do with racism or this case. I mean, why does one person dying mean you can go rob a Target? It doesn't make sense.
What is this?
This whole idea to blame it on racism and have it to do with that, it's just getting really old and tired.
Did we get like a pop-up ad?
It needs to stop.
What?
You guys get the point. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you
Is that the point when it has like followers like lose attention, like the 20-minute mark, so he decides to put a video of like a lady to like keep their attention? Why is there a video? Okay.
That like button to support this channel.
Okay. No, I'm not gonna hit that like button. Yeah, I'm sorry for torturing you guys. But it had to be done. Yeah, so just this is basically I think this is gonna be like the trial to or the trial period of the type of arguments that we might hear from right-wing people during this crisis. I mean the riots. So I just wanted to let everyone know, and again show that no bullshit is completely clueless. He has no idea what he's talking about. But yet he still has such a big. You have to make up for my lost brain cells. I know. I'm not sure how I'm gonna do that. I'll find something out. The most important thing is that you just try to take a breather, okay? Try to rest, try to oxygenate your brain. Gotta encourage the growth of new brain cells after that. Maybe listen to some Mozart or something. I don't know. I've heard that makes you smarter. I listen with kids. I don't know what to tell you guys. But yeah, I agree. It is terrifying that there are people that look at this in this way, that see this situation and get these conclusions and get these ideas from it. But this is not something that's uncommon. This is why I wanted to go over it, because while we're all very nice, very progressive, very woke people, we need to always be in touch with the other side and know what they're talking about and what type of arguments they're doing, because this is a big guy. This guy has like 600,000 subscribers. Like, granted, he only gets like 20,000 views on his videos. But you know, we need to be aware of this. This is the arguments that we hear. These are the people that have influence, and this is what they're saying. And I think this is one of the effective things you can do to you know, combat things like this, and you know, especially people that aren't in the United States and can't really do direct things. For us on the internet to be aware of these people and the arguments that they use, and you know, how we get around it, how we argue, how we change people's minds.